Oh wow. I think I'm live now. Let me text someone. I think I'm live now. Um, wow. Okay. So interesting thing is I tried going live earlier, but I thought I'd done it, but I hadn't. And so I started getting pings from people asking me, "Hey, what are you trying to do? Are you live? What's going on?" So I think I'm live now. So hopefully, even if no one joins, at least this is going to be an experiment that I'm trying out. Welcome to Wezesha Wednesday. My name is Ichi, and a lot of you have been part of Wezesha for the past 2 or 3 months, so you're probably familiar with it. But for those who are not, Wezesha is a platform that provides access to resources, information, opportunity, and support so that anyone who's trying to accomplish something, who's trying to get something done, can sort of like take advantage of shared experiences and feel empowered through it. So simply put, Wezesha's mission is just to empower through sharing. And so what I thought about doing was to create this thing called Wezesha Wednesdays. So why Wednesday? I think most people start off Sunday really inspired. They come from church, they get a good sermon, they get, inspiration, and they start Monday fresh. They're excited and everyone's excited. But by the time you get to Wednesday, if things are not working your way, it becomes, you start going down that path of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, feeling like you haven't accomplished what you sought to accomplish for the week. So what I'm hoping to do through Wezesha Wednesdays is to inject a little bit of inspiration on Wednesdays so that you can get inspired and get back on track. And so today, what I wanted to talk about is um, something I learned about recently. It's called the Insights Action Gap. But before I do that, let me kind of talk about some of the things I'll do over the next few weeks. I'm going to try and curate topics all related to personal growth, to career growth, to maximizing your business performance if you have a business or you're an entrepreneur. And, I just want to make sure that by sharing this information, someone can benefit from it. And I've actually somewhere I've put a link where, you can contact me and we can sort of discuss how I can help you through either personal growth, career growth, or maximizing your business performance. But what about today? So today I'll focus on the gap. So for those of you who've been to the UK, to England, London, and you take the train. When you take the train, as soon as you get to the next station, you hear an announcement, a big announcement that says, "Mind the gap, mind the gap." And I always wondered, what is mind the gap? What does that mean? Come to find out that it's a warning for those passengers who are exiting the train and getting on the platform that there is actually a gap between the train and the platform. So watch as you step so that you don't fall. And that sort of is counterintuitive. Like, you live there, you take the train all the time. Why should you be mindful of the gap? But in thinking about this, I want to metaphorically think about how that manifests in our, in what we're trying to do when we are trying to action and we are trying to accomplish something, and then suddenly there's a gap. Catherine Odera, yes, I am the first person who joined ever. I'm so excited. So anyway, mind the gap. Okay, so let me then reframe how mind the gap could work in our lives when we're trying to either grow personally, professionally, or grow our business. So, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to my favorite podcast, Hidden Brain, Shankar Vedantam, and he talked about something called the insight action gap. So, what is the insight action gap? The insight action gap is knowing the right thing to do doesn't automatically mean we do the right thing. Knowing the right thing to do doesn't automatically mean you do the right thing. Thank you, Joanne. Thanks for joining. So, this is like so counterintuitive. And because I learned it, I want to share it with you. The insight action gap. Knowing the right thing to do doesn't automatically mean we do the right thing. A lot of people think that the reason for that is procrastination, the reason for that is laziness, the reason for that is bad habits. But guess what? The inside action gap is not really about hypocrisy per se, is that learning something and doing something requires two different muscles. So think about it. You've learned something, so you've exercised that muscle of learning. You've gone to school, you're joining all these groups, you're growing, you're learning, but doing it is a completely different muscle. So a lot of us then focus on strengthening this learning muscle without strengthening the action muscle. And so today I decided to do, professors normally speak but don't do, but today I decided to do what I'm preaching, which is instead of learning and, trying to get all these insights, I'm actually going to exercise the muscle of doing. And so I said, I'll go on Facebook. I've seen people like Joanne, CG, like Jean, everyone doing Facebook Lives. I'm going to figure out how to do it and I'll just exercise that muscle. So the inside action gap. But more specifically, what I want to talk about today is one of the reasons why we have that inside action gap. There's a ton of reasons, but today I want to focus on this one called fear. F-E-A-R. So what is fear and why does fear come about? Fear is something that paralyzes our efforts in actually closing that gap between insight and action. So oftentimes you'll hear people say things like, don't be scared, don't be fearful, overcome fear. The truth of the matter is, fear is necessary for us to survive. Fear is necessary for us to survive. It is an evolutionary thing where we need to get scared. Because if we do not get scared, the species that do not get scared, they don't survive. So fear is the physical manifestation in us that allows us to survive. And how do we respond to fear? Fight, flight, freeze. And so when we're trying to accomplish something and we get overcome by fear as humans, just like with rabbits, with my little dog Zuzu, when he's scared, he just freezes. But why is he freezing? Because he feels that if he freezes and doesn't move, then he will not be overcome by whatever it is that he's scared of. So in that same way, when we're seeking to accomplish something and we get scared and we feel fear, we'll freeze. And that creates that inside action gap. So my reason for joining Facebook Live today was to push through that freezing that I've had for a really long time, to acknowledge that that fear exists, to acknowledge that it's okay to have that fear, but to push through the fear. So today I'm going to talk about a couple of techniques that we can use to push through the fear. But let me give you an example of how fear manifests itself. So a long time ago, I was in UGA. I was doing my graduate work there, and we went to this thing called a ropes course. Okay, a ropes course is where you go and you do all this team building things. You're told, fall back and someone catches you, right? So with this particular one, we were asked to walk across a plank. The plank was a wooden plank. It was like 20 feet, but it was 2 feet above the ground. So it wasn't high. You just basically step up on the plank and you walk 20 feet from one side to the other and you're done. It reminded me, because Joanne always enjoys me at, I'm a Barbie because I'm a Gavwesti. But Joanne, we used to cross the river from our flats to Bobby's flats using that plank or the pipe, and we'd cross and then get to the other side. And as kids, you don't recognize how fearful you are that you might fall in the water. But anyway, I digress. Let me go back to UGA. So everyone stepped up on the plank. Again, it's 2 feet above the ground, walked the 20 feet across, no problem. People were hopping with one leg, skip jumping with another leg, like everyone was extremely happy. And then they took that plank and they took it 20 feet above the ground. The same plank, same width, nothing different, but this time 20 feet above the ground. And again, you were just walking 20 feet across and they told us to go across. 50% of the people said, no, I'm not doing it. The rest of us try to do it. People like me, I froze for I was next door to you in Kile. Yay, yay. Um, People like me froze. Like literally, you climb up the pole and you have all these things holding you, but you freeze. And I froze. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to make it across because I'm going to die. A very natural reaction. But after 20, 25 minutes, because of encouragement from people, I was able to push through the fear. And that's the message I want to deliver today. Fear exists for survival. Do not try to overcome the fear. Do not try and deny that it exists. Find techniques to push through the fear. When I listened to Shankar Vedantam, and he was talking about fear, and he was, interviewing this psychiatrist, and the the biggest lesson from it was that fear is healthy, right? So again, I want to reinforce that fear is healthy. Those creatures that did not have fear have ceased to exist. Those of us who have fear survive. So now that we know what fear is and we acknowledge that it exists, so what do we do? Um, there's a couple of things that can help us uh, through this. So the first thing is we need to understand the mechanisms of fear when they occur in our lives, and we need to form a relationship with it. So you need to welcome in the fear and say, fear, I got you, I understand you exist, and you're going to coexist with me. Once you form that relationship with fear, there's a number of things that you can do to push through it, but I'm going to give you two today. The first one is what they call uh, exposure, right? I'm looking for my notes over here because I wrote some very good notes. I was so scared of joining this Facebook Live, but I have the notes somewhere. But one of the things that we can do, here it is. One of the things that we can do with fear is called exposure therapy. Okay. What does exposure therapy mean? Exposure therapy means you understand that you have fear, you form a relationship with that fear, and then you start exposing yourself to situations where you can push through that fear. And what does exposing yourself mean? If you think about the story I told you about UGA, exposure therapy was walking across the plank when it was 2 feet high so that we can walk across the plank when it's 20 feet high. People like Joanne who do personal coaching and professional coaching, maybe they have this fear of public speaking. So how do you use exposure therapy? You bring in your friends and you talk through it with them so that you can expose yourself to that situation where you're going to be talking to people, but you're using friendlies for it. You minimize the scope of the work that you're doing so that you can get used to doing it. You bring friendlies around you and ask for feedback. Again, you are exposing yourself to that fear so that you can form a good relationship with it. Case in point, today I decided I'm going to expose myself to Facebook Live. I've never done it. I've seen people do it. I've been scared of doing it. But I figured Wezesha is a friendly crew, so I'm just going to expose myself to it. So as you think about how to get to accomplish your goals, and you think about the gap between what you intend to do and the action that you need to do it, if fear is one of the things that's stopping you from doing it, I want you to form a relationship with fear and start using exposure therapy. Small scope, friendly people, so that you can get to a point where you can overcome, wrong word, not overcome, go through the fear. So that's number one. The second thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of forming a relationship with fear is learning. When you learn, when you have a skill, when you have the thing that is going to allow you to accomplish what you need to accomplish, then you're forming a healthy relationship with fear. One of the things that scares a lot of us is you hear things like imposter syndrome, or we don't think that we are good enough. But as you learn and become an expert at something, then that helps you push through the fear. Alice, my dear friend, boy, you're doing great. That is so kind. Thank you so much. If you learn something and you sort of allow yourself or immerse yourself in that learning, then when you put it out there, whether you're teaching or coaching or whatever it is, that helps you push through the fear. And sometimes the best way to learn it, besides reading, studying, is to watch people and see how they do what it is that you do so that you can learn and overcome the fear. I think, Joanne, Catherine, you guys may remember when we did Reimagine Wealth with Joanne, I mean with Jean, um, one of the things I told you is, I'm active soccer player, as is my son. Like we play futa all the time. In fact, I'm playing futa in 2 hours at 9:15. Yeah, I don't know why. But anyway, every time we go play soccer, there's anxiety, there's fear, the same fear that I get when I'm presenting to a VP, the same fear I get when I'm doing a Facebook Live. The fear exists. But when you learn what it is that you need to do, then you're able to push through the fear. So, two things I wanted to talk about today in terms of pushing through fear. One, exposure therapy, scientifically proven to help you push through the fear. Two, learn your trade so that when you do whatever it is you're doing it more confidently and you're able to push through the fear. The last thing I wanna, and I'm not a spiritual guy like many people, but I'm gonna pretend over here because yes, I'm in a league too. Yes, Catherine, that's what's up. So 2 weeks ago, before I took my son for a soccer game, we couldn't go to church because it was messing up with his soccer schedule. So I listened to this guy, Joel Osteen. How many of you guys know Joel Osteen? Joel Osteen, the preacher, yeah. And I love him because in 30 minutes I get so much content from him. So he actually talked about fear. And this is what he said. He said that, where is it? He said, we need to have a healthy diet of faith in addition to fear. We need to have a healthy diet of faith in addition to fear. And what I thought about when he said that was, acknowledge the fear exists, and if you're thinking of a diet in terms of protein, carbohydrates, fat, whatever it is, acknowledge that fear is there. Put it in a plate, but have a healthy diet of faith in addition to fear. So in addition to exposure therapy and learning, is to use faith as a bigger part of your diet than fear. Use faith as a bigger part of your diet than fear. Feed the faith, hope, and victory more than the diet of fear, discouragement, and defeat. Feed the faith, hope, and victory more than the diet of fear, discouragement, and defeat. And again, a couple of ways to do it: learning and exposure therapy, because then those help provide that sort of cognitive closure to reduce that gap between insight and action. So I've talked a lot. The thing I didn't want about this live stream, I felt like it was one way, but I hope somewhere in there was a message that was helpful to someone or to some of you. And if you're stuck in your pursuit of accomplishment, if you have a business and you're trying to figure out how to scale it and need some guidance on putting a strategy together to do it, if you just want to accomplish something finally, whether it's health, wealth, relationship, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about how I can help you with that. But I'll leave you with this today. Balance your fear with faith. Acknowledge that fear is natural and it's necessary for survival. Do not ignore it. Do not try to be fearless. Embrace the fear and form a good relationship with it. Use exposure therapy, whether it's limited scope, friends around you, something that allows you to push through the fear, not to overcome it, but to push through the fear. And then finally, if you need any guidance, anyone to sort of brainstorm ideas with to help you push through that fear, feel free to contact me. I hope this actually recorded. I don't know. I'd set it up for I didn't want to talk more than 20 minutes. I'm at 20:01. So hopefully this helped. And actually, you know what? I'll put it here in the comment. Alice, how are you doing? Catherine, how are you doing? Joanne, how are you doing? Exposure therapy. Yes, exposure therapy. Very important. Um, Second thing that I mentioned was healthy diet of faith and fear. Then use learning as a tool to push through fear. And finally, insight. And you can look at you can sort of like Google this, right? It's called the insights action gap. It is so important. Remember, I'll say it because it bears repeating. We hear everyone calling you a hypocrite, people calling you procrastinators, people saying that you have unhealthy habits because the insights you have are not turning into action. The reality is those are two different muscles. Like Adam Grant said in Hidden Potential, if you read the book or listen to a podcast about the book, when he learned how to dive, what he kept doing was trying to strengthen what he was good at. But what he was coached on is to work on the things that he is not good at. So we have naturally a tendency, because we know this thing so well, we gravitate towards building that muscle of what we know well. But what the insight action gap is telling you is that those are two different muscles. One is called insight, and maybe you're really good at it. This other one is called action, and maybe you're not good at it. So practice this muscle of action. And that's what I was hoping to do with today's Facebook Live. So thank you all, those who joined. It's kind of awkward because I'm used to talking with people versus talking to people, but I hope this helped. Thank you, Chelsea, man. Yes, Chelsea. Anyway, let's not talk about the penalty taking a few days ago. Hope this was helpful. Reach out to me. Again, one thing I'm really genuinely interested in is hearing from you about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So I created a little form. I'm gonna put it here. Yes, it's a bit, no, John, it's a full body muscle workout. That is so true. And in fact, that's such a good metaphor. When you think about bodybuilding, some people have some parts of their body that genetically are big. Like some people have a big chest, some people have big arms. And when you go to the gym, you see them training that chest and that arm, but they may have skinny legs or skinny biceps or whatever it is, but they're not exercising those just because they want to maximize what they already know. So I think exactly like a full body muscle workout, figure out what your weakness is. And we'll talk about that in another Facebook Live, which is how do I then work on the parts that I'm weak at? And, you know, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. But for this Facebook Live, I just wanted to make sure that we leave acknowledging that fear is a good thing. Fear is how we survive. Fear is why we're here and why some species have died off. So thank you all. Let's see, Joanne, how do I end a Facebook Live? Do I just close the browser? Do I click like end live video? Isn't that rude? Like you just say bye and just go? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Let me ask that question. How do I end a Facebook Live without appearing rude? How do I end a Facebook Live without appearing rude? I just feel like, just close it. That's it. You guys won't be offended that I just said bye and just ended it. Joanne is so funny to close it. Anyway, thank you for being with me on this. Okay, for this Wezesha Wednesday. Again, I will try to do these every week and bring different learnings that can help us go from where we are in terms of what we want to accomplish and how we can end up accomplishing what it is that we want to do. Joanne is tired. She's like, say goodbye and close. Goodbye.